Have you ever heard a voice so powerful that it made an entire room forget to breathe? Stay with me until the very end, because this is the unforgettable story of a humble Filipino man whose incredible voice shocked the judges, silenced the audience, and reminded millions around the world that true talent doesn't come from fame or fortune, it comes from the heart. And before we begin, if stories like this inspire you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because every week we bring you emotional stories that prove miracles can happen when people refuse to give up. The lights inside the America's Got Talent theater glowed brighter than ever. Thousands of people filled every seat while millions more would eventually watch from home. The audience expected another entertaining performance, another singer hoping to impress the judges. No one knew they were about to witness something unforgettable. Backstage stood a quiet man named Daniel Santos, a 47-year-old father from the Philippines. His clothes were simple. His shoes had clearly seen better days. He wasn't surrounded by assistants or makeup artists. He carried only an old leather bag and a faded photograph of his family. As he waited for his name to be called, his hands trembled slightly. Not because he was afraid of singing, but because he knew this opportunity might never come again. Daniel had spent most of his life working as a construction laborer in Manila. Every sunrise meant another exhausting day under the scorching heat. Every sunset meant another struggle to provide enough food for his wife and 2 daughters. Yet throughout all those difficult years, there was one thing that never left him: his voice. Every evening after work, when the neighborhood grew quiet, Daniel would sing Elvis Presley songs outside his small home. Children would stop playing just to listen. Elderly neighbors would smile through their windows. Even stray dogs seemed to sit peacefully whenever he sang. People constantly told him, "You sound just like Elvis." Daniel always laughed. "I'm just a worker," he would reply. Dreams like that belong to other people. Years passed. His daughters grew older. Money became tighter. Then tragedy struck. Daniel's wife was diagnosed with a serious heart condition. The treatment was expensive, far beyond anything their family could afford. Daniel worked longer hours. He skipped meals. He sold almost everything valuable they owned. Still, it wasn't enough. One night, while sitting beside his sleeping wife in the hospital, his youngest daughter quietly handed him an old newspaper clipping. It was an advertisement for America's Got Talent auditions. "Dad," she whispered, "everyone says your voice is special. Maybe this is your chance." Daniel smiled sadly. "America? We can barely afford the bus." His daughter looked into his eyes. "You taught us that impossible only means we haven't tried yet." Those words stayed with him. Friends in the community organized small fundraising concerts. Neighbors donated whatever little money they could. Some gave 10 pesos. Others gave 50. One elderly woman handed him her savings wrapped inside a handkerchief. "I've listened to your songs for 20 years, she said. "Now it's our turn to help you." Months later, Daniel finally stepped onto a plane for the first time in his life. Everything felt unreal. The enormous buildings. The bright streets. The massive AGT stage. He almost turned around and went home. Backstage, he watched contestant after contestant perform. Many looked younger, more confident, better dressed. Some had professional vocal coaches. Others had years of stage experience. Daniel had none of those things. He only had hope. Finally, a producer called his name. "Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Santos." The stage seemed enormous as he walked toward the center. The judges smiled politely. Simon Cowell leaned forward. "So Daniel, where are you from?" "I'm from Manila, Philippines." The audience applauded warmly. "What do you do for a living?" "I'm a construction worker." Simon raised an eyebrow. "And why America's Got Talent?" Daniel paused. His eyes filled with tears. My wife is sick. My daughters believe my voice can change our future. Today, I'm singing for them." The theater suddenly became quiet. Everyone could feel his sincerity. Simon nodded gently. "Whenever you're ready." Daniel closed his eyes. He took one deep breath. Then the first note escaped. No one expected what happened next. It wasn't simply a good Elvis impression. It was astonishing. His voice carried the deep warmth, emotional power, and timeless soul that reminded everyone of Elvis Presley himself while still sounding uniquely his own. Within seconds, the audience stopped moving. Conversations disappeared. Even the judges froze. Every lyric seemed filled with decades of sacrifice, heartbreak, hope, and unconditional love. The room wasn't merely listening. The room was feeling. A woman in the front row quietly wiped tears from her eyes. A young boy looked at his mother with complete amazement. Simon Cowell, famous for rarely showing emotion, slowly lowered his pen and stared silently at the stage. Daniel sang as though every note carried the weight of his family's future. There were no fancy dance moves. No expensive visual effects. Only raw emotion. Only truth. As the chorus arrived, something extraordinary happened. The audience instinctively stood up. No one had asked them to. Thousands of people rose together. Their applause echoed throughout the theater while Daniel continued singing without breaking concentration. The judges looked at one another. Howie Mandel whispered, "This is unbelievable." Heidi Klum smiled through tears. Sofia Vergara held her hand over her heart. Simon simply watched. Completely silent. For perhaps the first time in a very long time, words failed him. When the final note ended, absolute silence filled the room. It lasted only a few seconds. But those seconds felt eternal. Then the entire theater exploded. People screamed. People cried. People hugged complete strangers. The standing ovation continued longer than anyone expected. Daniel stood motionless. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He had spent decades believing he was invisible. Now thousands celebrated him. Simon finally picked up the microphone. "I've heard thousands of singers throughout my career." He paused. "But every once in a while, someone walks onto the stage and reminds us why this show exists." Daniel lowered his head. Simon continued. "You didn't just imitate Elvis. You made us believe every single word you sang." The audience erupted again. Howie smiled broadly. "I've never seen Simon speechless before." "Congratulations." Heidi added, "Your voice doesn't just sound beautiful. It feels beautiful." Sophia wiped another tear away. "You reminded all of us that dreams have no expiration date." Daniel struggled to hold back his emotions. Then Simon looked toward the audience. "I think everyone here knows exactly what should happen." The crowd immediately began chanting. "Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer!" Daniel looked around in confusion. He never imagined people would chant for him. Simon smiled. "You've spent your life building homes for other people. Today, it's time someone helped build your dream." He reached toward the golden buzzer. For one unforgettable moment, everything seemed frozen. Then, he pressed it. Golden confetti exploded across the theater. Daniel fell to his knees. His hands covered his face as tears streamed down his cheeks. The audience cheered louder than ever before. His daughters ran onto the stage crying. They hugged their father beneath a shower of golden confetti. His wife, watching from backstage, slowly walked forward with tears in her eyes. She embraced Daniel tightly. Neither of them could speak. They didn't need words. The moment said everything. News of Daniel's audition spread across social media within hours. Millions watched. Millions shared. People from every corner of the world left heartfelt comments. Some said the performance reminded them of their own parents. Others said it gave them hope after difficult times. Many admitted they cried while watching. Music producers contacted Daniel. Television interviews followed. Concert invitations arrived from different countries. More importantly, generous people donated enough money to cover his wife's medical treatment. For the first time in years, Daniel slept peacefully. Not because he had become famous, but because his family finally had hope. Months later, during another interview, a reporter asked him the question everyone wanted answered. When did you realize your dream had finally come true? Daniel smiled softly. It wasn't when Simon pressed the golden buzzer. It wasn't when millions watched online. It wasn't when people recognized me. The reporter looked surprised. Then when? Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out the same faded family photograph he had carried onto the AGT stage. My dream came true the day my daughters believed in me, before anyone else did. The interviewer became emotional. So fame never mattered? Daniel shook his head. Fame disappears. Money comes and goes. But when someone you love believes in you during your darkest moments, that changes your entire life. Years later, Daniel returned to the same neighborhood where he once sang outside his small home after exhausting days at construction sites. Nothing about the neighborhood had changed. Children still played in the streets. Neighbors still gathered outside during the evenings. Only one thing was different. This time, Daniel wasn't singing alone. Dozens of local children stood beside him. He had started a free music program for families who couldn't afford lessons. Every week he taught them not just how to sing, but how to believe. One little boy nervously